This week on Gymwright Live, we interview Sean Lake of BUBS Naturals to learn about what he's got going on with his project and how you can amp up your retail sales at your box. For all of you listening to this via podcast, be sure to check out the video version of this interview and the extensive show notes at gymwright.com. And if you're enjoying the show, please leave us a 5-star rating and written review. If you'd like to watch the show live, we record every Friday in the network, which is our free private Facebook group for the motivated gym owners of the world. So tap into that, tap into those strategies and grow your business. Join the network today and get in on that conversation. All right, back to the show. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Gymwright Live. I am your host, Mark Escurzi, and with me today we have the wonderful Mr. Sean Lake of BUBS Naturals. Sean, how you doing, brother? Welcome to the show.
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Such a pleasure. You and I go way back to the days of running our boxes and trying to figure out how we can do it better and helping promote boobs all over the world through Barbells for Boobs. So excited to finally have you on and get to chat with you a little bit about what you got going on with BUBS Naturals, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's been a while. Funny how we're following some similar life patterns there. So getting caught up is fantastic.
Yeah, the last couple of years have been the last few years have been a bit of a roller coaster. I know for both of us having our kids right around the same time, and your daughter's just 5 days apart from mine, right?
Yeah. We both have 9-month-olds or 10-month-olds that are coming in hot on turning one, walking, and causing all sorts of mayhem around the house.
Good times. Yeah. It's definitely stepped up my coffee game and how much I'm consuming these days, which, actually, funny enough, what I have been drinking your, BUBS Naturals, mixed into my morning matcha and into our coffee, which when you first told me about doing that, I kind of thought you were nuts. And cause I've never actually taken a protein and like mixed it in because normally that would kind of taste like shit and not interested in that. And nope. It's literally a staple now for both my wife and I every single morning with our matcha tea. Couldn't be happier with it, man. So excited to have you on. You've got a really unique story with this company and, you know, what you guys are doing and really how the whole thing started. So I'm excited to explore that, as well as chatting about, you know, what gym owners can be doing to really help amp up their retail sales. This is a really key time of year going into the new year. You're going to get a lot of fresh blood coming in through your doors. And we want to make sure that we're indoctrinating each one of those people and exposing them to the good products that we carry so they don't run off to GNC and buy a bunch of garbage.
Yeah, exactly. You know, going top shelf is, well, even what they say, garbage in, garbage out.
That's
so
it.
You definitely want to treat your body like the temple that it's meant to be, hands down.
Especially mine. Thank you.
Of course.
All right. So a little bit of backstory on you because you've got quite a bit to you that I don't think really gets brought up very often. You were an ex-pro snowboarder turned Burton team manager back in the day, X Games, Tony Hawk tour manager. You worked with DC Shoes doing all sorts of marketing with them and CrossFit and SEAL Fit. You owned a box. You've been in the game in like every possible way, for a long time. And I just want to preface too, you know, before we go any further, you know, you and I had the opportunity of working directly together, on the Barbells for Boobs project, for years. And, I always really enjoyed our time together. Honestly, I considered you a bit of a mentor when it came to business development and, getting to, you know, be in the shadow of, you know, the deals being put together and orchestrating some of these things that I got to be a part of, and I got to learn a lot from you. So I just want to say thank you to you for that.
Wow. Thanks a lot, man. Yeah. I mean, it was always super fun working together. It's funny how you say mentor on one side, and I appreciate that. At the same time, I will definitely reply to that by saying how much I learned from you on an organizational standpoint. Some would say OCD. I choose not to. And, but like, you know, literally going into your gym for the first time and seeing how meticulous everything was laid out is a reflection on the environment and the coaching and the delivery of the product that you had. And it was just very visual. You walk in, the welcome desk, you literally had a retail shelf that was, you know, could have been in, you know, right in Soho. And it was pretty well done. And you know, great first impressions. And of course, working together with Ziona and the great team over at Barbells for Boobs was freaking awesome. I mean, talk about just a whirlwind during the explosive growth time of CrossFit and
Yep.
learning about community and how to activate around it. I mean, there was so much great stuff to touch on there. But yeah, it's definitely been a bit of a wild ride. With a resume like that, I should be like 90 years old, I think. But no, I got out of high school. I'm from Winchester, Massachusetts, and I went to college. And within a year, I was like, "What the hell am I doing? This sucks." And I moved to Utah. And I was passionate about skateboarding. I love snowboarding. So this is like early 90s. So like snowboarding was in its infancy compared to where it is now. And I just had that dream like every teenage kid who loves action sports does, which is I want to be a pro. And I went out there and, got my ass handed to me in these really big mountains and started to learn, started to figure it out. And I love snowboarding so much that I got lucky enough to get some endorsements and start traveling around, and next thing you know, I'm snowboarding for a living, and it was the frickin' dream. Somewhere along the way, I figured out that whole college thing I left behind probably will come in handy later on. So, around 25, I jumped back into school, and I was very creative with my semester life. I would go summer semester and fall semester, and I would take the whole winter off so I could go ride.
Makes sense.
And I was basically using the small paychecks I would get from snowboarding to pay my tuition, and kind of made it all work out. So by the ripe old age of 30, I had my bachelor's degree. So, and then, right around that same time, my knees were really starting to get achy, and it was time for that transition. So, and yeah, I got recruited out of being in Salt Lake City and graduating from the University of Utah to move to Encinitas, California, of all places, back in 2002, to become the team manager for Burton Snowboards. And talk about a dream job. Like it's like going to grad school for an explosive growth business and learning about marketing campaigns, learning about how valuable the athlete driven marketing process is, product innovation, and how all these things tie back together. The expression drinking from a fire hose isn't wrong, but if you get a couple good gulps in there, it goes a long way. I learned more in my time at Burton than I had in most any job up to that point. And that kind of parlayed into some other jobs all around action sports. I got pulled into ESPN to help with the X Games and kind of do some industry relationship work. So it was like being a liaison between the Hurleys of the world or some of the motocross companies and this, East Coast media company that didn't know how to talk bro. And I had the ability to talk bro. So I was like, all right, you can bro here and then get into the business room with the guys trying to sell commercial properties on TV and kind of help be that translator. I joked with the guys that I worked with. I'm like, I get to play Santa Claus because all I'm going to do is run around giving free tickets to every industry company in the world, which is great for my resume.
Right.
And you guys look great because you're giving VIP tickets out to the X Games. Mm-hmm. So I did that for a while and a couple consulting jobs around action sports. And then one of them was working with Tony Hawk and on one of his secret skate park tours, which was freaking wild. It wasn't a long job. It was a couple months to lead up to the tour, execute the tour. But dude, it was wild. Like we literally toured the country in a week. And it was like, Bam Margera flies in from some exotic spot where he just got done banging Jessica Simpson. And and I get download right before it's going into the newspaper because, Tony Hawk and the other guys are grilling him. They're like, Bam, seriously, what happened? And I'm like, I got a front row seat to this. This is sweet.
How fun is that? That must have been amazing.
It's funny. And then, people will ask once in a while, they're like, well, you used to work with Shaun White. What's that like? And I'm like, well, I worked with him when he was 16 years old. So like I was chasing him around, making sure he did his homework before going to the Vans, event to do the Triple Crown. Mm-hmm. So I had a very different experience. It was, pre-Olympics and all that stuff. Which is cool because I see him now and we kind of chuckle about how, when he was 16, he was in Park City training up and just riding the half pipe there. And it was over Christmas. And I was in Utah visiting my family, doing Christmas dinner, and I realized that him and his brother Jesse, they were just going to be home alone, like in some hotel room for Christmas. So I tell my mom, I'm like, hey, listen, one of the kids on the team that I work with at Burton, he doesn't have anywhere to go for Christmas. Can we have him over for Christmas dinner? And of course my mom's like, yeah, of course, bring him over. So then, Sean and Jesse are sitting at the Christmas table with us for dinner and, gets to meet everyone. Glenn Doherty's there. and the whole crew just hangs out for Christmas dinner. And now, of course, he wins the Olympics, and my mom's like, "That was the kid who was at our Christmas table."
Wow.
So fun stuff, all in sports marketing, and we're talking event management or athlete contracts or the kind of stuff that you and I touched on at Barbells for Boobs, which was largely managing the Reebok relationship and how to work with them and work with other partners and establish how companies can engage in an event tour, get the most ROI for them, but really help promote a fantastic cause at the same time. And how do you blend those two things? So it was a great way to meet you and get onboarded. And of course, at that point, I'm kind of an old guy in CrossFit. I started CrossFit with Glenn, my buddy that we'll talk about more later. He introduced me to it in 2008. I think you were right around then too, weren't you? Like I'm on that early cusp.
Yep.
And that was it. The rest was history. I was like, well, running and biking and swimming does not cut it compared to lifting some weights, running around, and making a bunch of noise with your shirt off.
Yeah, I know. We started about the same time. Yeah, I started early 2008 up here in the Orange County scene. You were down in Encinitas. And we were pretty lucky here in Southern California to be around a lot of the action firsthand, just because there was so much energy with the whole Southern California CrossFit scene and a lot of the momentum, a lot of the companies stemming out of here. So it was a fun time. Now, tell us a little bit about you and the origin of BUBS Natural. So how do we transition into BUBS? And I mean, you were a box owner for a couple years. Let's walk us through that evolution.
Yeah, so I basically got done with the whole action sports thing at the end of 2010. I'd done a bunch of years at DC Shoes, part of Quicksilver, and I left that and I was like, man, I need a reset. We're talking total life reset. And I, was getting a divorce. I moved out of my house. I moved into my best friend from high school and grade school's house. His name's Glenn Doherty. Glenn was a Navy SEAL who had just gotten out of the Navy. He'd gotten a divorce. So we're two single guys, best friends since we were, 13 years old, and we're roommates in Encinitas. Well, what do you do when you're roommates in Encinitas and you're single? You run around your CrossFit gym and get as fit as humanly possible. Because the alternative when you're turning 40 and you're just getting a divorce is you're going to drink your face off. And I just, that's not where I wanted to be in my life. Like, I wanted to make progressive steps. I didn't want to step back. So it was get super fit. And that led to getting my L1 cert in 2009. Like you said, we're kind of in the hotbed of CrossFit. My original CrossFit coach and Glenn's original CrossFit coach was a guy named Rory McKernan. So Rory was the head coach at US CrossFit in Encinitas, where Glenn and I both went to. Rory helped me get my level 1 certification. He was actually an instructor there as well. And little did I know he was going to become the darling face of media.
So handsome.
For all of CrossFit. So handsome. Getting better with age. He's a handsome devil right now. We'll credit the BUBS for that.
Yep.
But so Rory's my original coach. I meet all the kind of players in CrossFit from that, and I get immersed in this culture. And it was very interesting timing because, of course, Dave Castro is transitioning the games out of his place in Aromas. So your listeners that have a good history degree in CrossFit will remember that the original CrossFit games happened in more central California on his family's ranch. So Rory introduces me to him, and I end up talking with Dave about how to negotiate an event contract in a new location. And I introduced him to what became the Home Depot Center and the StubHub Center.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so I actually helped him negotiate and meet the sales staff from Home Depot Center, what it was called at the time, and when the CrossFit Games moved and did its first year in Carson, which was so kick-ass. So I have a lunch with him and Jimmy Letchford, who's become a good friend, and we sit down and I start talking about, well, this is what ESPN did, this is what insurance looks like, this is, these are some different elements of a larger venue and what you can expect from a contract. And I helped them out a little while on that. And of course, the joke was that I was going to get the best seats that you could get at the CrossFit Games. So I took him up on that, and I show up at the games and I call Jimmy's cell phone And he's like, meet me at this spot right now. And I'm running around the Home Depot Center to this one spot. And he's standing at the top of this ladder on some roof. And he's like, waves to me. He's like, come up here, come up here. And I race up the ladder and I'm standing there. And it's the kickoff event of, I think it was the 2009 games, the first year that they're in Carson. And I'm just in time for this Navy jet flyover, like, the five planes ripping overhead. It was mind blowing. And the place just erupts, like goes absolutely bonkers. We've all got goosebumps. And I was like, it was totally worth having lunch with you. And that was it. Like the CrossFit, I was already coaching. I was already loving it. But that was a great way to really know that, hey, this thing's going to be in my life, forever. The training, the community, all the things that your listeners already know all about. So fast forward 2 years, and Glenn's my roommate, and Glenn is a former Navy SEAL who is contracting for the CIA. And so he's like a lot of former spec op military guys. You get out, you're not really sure what you're going to do in life, and this contracting job is there, and you're getting paid nothing as an active duty Navy SEAL, but you get out and all of a sudden you're a six-figure earner if you contract with these different agencies. And people have heard of Blackwater and companies like that.
Yep.
Glenn contracted directly for the US government. So he was working with the CIA, and he was getting paid 3 times what he was getting in the Navy and working half the year. So that was our life together. He was off in deployment somewhere. He'd come home, we'd go to the gym, and then he'd go again, and he was off. So by 2012, he was really starting to struggle with that lifestyle. And he was looking for a way to get out. Like, what's next? What's next? And so for him, he was getting ready to go back to school, like figure that out. He'd settled on becoming a physician's assistant. And there's a lot more to that, but we don't need to get into the details. Just, it was a struggle to figure out what he was going to do next. Meanwhile, I'm doing consulting work for different brands. I've kind of established kind of my post-action sports life. And part of that is being a coach at the SEAL Fit Gym, which is US CrossFit, Mark Devine's gym, and helping my good buddy Danny Miller open CrossFit 2120, a much smaller gym down in Del Mar. So it's actually right around the corner from where the regionals have been held, for the last umpteen years. And so Danny's gym gets inundated every May when the games, when the regional competition comes to town, which is super cool to see all these, rock star athletes come through that little box and, just tear it up. And the rest of us, like, they really are kind of superhuman. Yep. They can move a lot of weight really well. So anyways, Glenn Doherty and Danny and I all kind of helped open Dan's gym in the summer of 2012. And I got a firsthand knowledge of what it's like to open a business. I was really passionate about the gym space and the culture of CrossFit. So I put some money in to become a minority owner in the gym. And that's, by the way, not something I would necessarily recommend, because the expectations that come along with being a 10% owner compared to the reality of delivering 10% of your time are never in alignment.
Nope.
As any gym owner knows, it is absolutely a labor of love. And when you are in it, you cannot give it enough time. You can't give it enough love. And so I quickly realized that Danny and I should be friends first and not business partners. And that was just because, he needed so much more out of that. And I was never going to be able to give it to him because, I had my regular career, my regular job that I was trying to succeed at. And the gym was like this nice add-on. Mm-hmm. But, we came up with the math formulas together and really dug into all the details of gym ownership. Like, hey, how many members do you need to stay afloat? How much depreciation do you take on your gym equipment? What kind of community events should you be a part of? And what do those look like? Sorry, I just got to stretch my hand here real quick. It's just getting a little tight. That was my business partner coming over here and giving me a hard time. Off camera, of course. So I was a part of that, watching Danny Miller kind of like fight his way through that and coach his hours and how much to pay him. And it was a freaking huge eye opener. And of course you love it. Like, you love this community. That's why I got into coaching. And I think you can relate to this. Obviously any coach can relate to this. the satisfaction that you get from teaching someone their first pull-up, or seeing someone PR lift, or just do anything better than what they had done before they walked in the door to that gym, is so freaking satisfying.
No doubt.
And being a part of that was like, that's why I kept going back into it. And I was like, I'm going to become a 10% gym owner. This is probably a horrible business decision, but I'm going to do it anyways because I freaking love it. And it wasn't a horrible business decision. It really scratched an itch that I had a passion for, which was, hey, I want to help some other people out. And I didn't know I wanted to do that until I became a coach in the first place a couple years earlier. And I was like, I love this. I love helping people out, and like seeing this lady get her first pull up and like having her like beam about it, and, you know, bumping into her a year later and be like, remember when you taught me my first pull up? That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's the satisfaction you get out of that. So you take the struggles, and the time commitment, and you absorb it all because it's worth it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, man. It's one of the most emotionally rewarding businesses that you can be in. On the hour, every hour, you have a new wave of people who've been looking forward to it all day, eager to come in, do something positive for themselves, pumped to do, to get after it with you and with their friends. And you get to be the catalyst for that and for the progress, and providing those opportunities for moments of, PR or of emotional breakthroughs for people, of realizing that I never thought I could do something like this, and now I'm doing it well. Goes without saying almost.
Breaking down walls. So fast forward to, we get the gym open. It's now September of 2012. And Glenn takes off for what becomes his last deployment. So, he leaves. We do a big going away shindig actually around the gym, down across at 2120. Glenn's on a plane, flies over. He's stationed in Tripoli. I talked to him on Skype, 2 days later. He's settled in. He had just broken up with his girlfriend, so he was checking in on how's everything going down in San Diego. Is everyone cool? And next day, there's this little blip on the news: terrorist attack in Benghazi, Libya. And I write Glenn a quick email. I'm going to bed. I'm like, hey, buddy, be safe. Thinking about you. Next morning, I wake up. I go to the gym. I coach my morning classes. And I hear it again, another blip on the news, but now it's all over the news. And I'm like, well, Glenn was in Tripoli. This was in Benghazi. I don't even know where Benghazi is, but it's not Tripoli. I'm sure he's fine. So I write him another note. Hey, man, be cool, be safe. I hope everything's well. And little did I know that the attacks on Benghazi had already happened and claimed 4 American lives. And Glenn was one of the 4 Americans killed. And it turns out that Glenn flew from Tripoli down to Benghazi to save all those lives, alongside, Ty Woods, who was down in Benghazi, the 2 SEALs, and trying to rescue Ambassador Stevens. And this was all over the news. They made a movie, 13 hours about it. And this is my roommate. This is my best friend from grade school. The guy I coach classes with, I competed against in all these CrossFit workouts. And, next thing you know, we're planning a memorial service for him, and he's a national hero. And, literally on every news channel for months and months is this fallout of what the hell happened in Benghazi.
Right.
And so, out of a situation like that, we don't need to dive into it, but you have an opportunity to react to something like that. And I think it's very much in line with the culture of CrossFit to look at a problem and find a solution. Yep. Or to overcome adversity, or to just to strive to do something different. Well, the different thing here was, we had this personality, Glenn, larger than life, best friend to literally hundreds of people. And I'll say that over and over again. This guy was the Facebook before Facebook. He kept people connected. He was super interested in what was going on in your life. And if he looked to you and talked to you, you felt connected to him. And that's a real gift. And he had that gift in spades. So when he died, Glenn's sister, Katie, said, we were talking in her basement, right before the funeral. And she's like, Glenn's too big of a character. He's too important to just let fade off into obscurity. We need to do something to memorialize him. So we agreed to start a foundation the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation to help special operators transition out of the military to civilian life. So that idea pops, and that's like, okay, Glenn's gone, but we can continue to project his legacy and all the great things that he stood for. Self-improvement. Okay, we'll make a foundation dedicated to education, helping guys get out of the military, educate themselves for whatever that transition is in life. Helping others. Glenn was always there to help others. So the foundation really did both things. Mm-hmm. And then, we come back and there's all the memorials. And next thing you know, I get a call from Rory, and he said, hey, I want you to apply to CrossFit HQ. Glenn should get a hero wad. And I'm like, whoa, like, holy shit. Yeah. Like, Glenn needs a workout named after him. And I remember Danny Miller and I sat down and we went through all the movements and all the stuff, and we created this fucking medieval workout, very passionate, like dedicated to Glenn. And we thought it was just, this absolute kick-ass workout. We're writing it out on the whiteboard, and we're, like, Glenn loved this and this and this. We have like a 3-hour workout. God even knows. And I remember submitting it to the guys at HQ, and they came back with the Glenn wad. And at first I was like, what? And then I really looked at it and I was like, ooh, God, you guys made this workout even meaner than the one that I had thought up. How did you do that? And of course they're the professionals. So, and so the Glenn workout, the Glenn Hero Wad, it was launched literally 2 months after Glenn passed. I mean, it was unbelievable how fast they turned it around, and it became this rally in the community, and of course very intimate from a personal standpoint in our group of friends down here in Encinitas. You got the Glenn workout, and he's now immortalized by the community of CrossFit. It was very special.
Wow. I mean, thanks for sharing, man. That's a really remarkable story. I mean, you very quickly, I think, turned grief and a big loss in your life into something positive for a lot of people. And it's something where I think a lot of people get caught off guard with something like this, and they let it completely take the wind out of your sails, out of everyone. It just turns into this really sad, negative thing, which of course is a component of it. But I think this speaks a lot to the HQ, the value they place on this stuff, and just the community that you had and the support that you had, that they mobilized so quickly and turned this into something, and you're able to activate that foundation and start making an impact immediately. And I know that's obviously we haven't even mentioned this yet, but his nickname was BUBS, right? Yeah,
that was Glenn's call sign. And sorry, I kind of got off on the tangent there of what happened immediately after 9/11 in 2012. But so Glenn's call sign in the Navy was Bub. So his nickname amongst his teammates, the other SEALs, was Glenn Bub, or just Bub. And I never called him that, but that's like, it was on like coffee mugs, and it was on all this stuff from being in the teams. Mm-hmm. And I never even knew then how he even got the nickname, but that was it. His call sign was Bub. So fast forward to 2017. Now it's been 5 years. I'm married. I have a child. My wife's just about to be pregnant with, obviously we already talked about, number 2. And I'm out of the gym business, but still coaching, still a part of the CrossFit world, just from a slightly more passive standpoint. And the foundation effectively caps its fundraising. We had more applicants for scholarships than we had money to give, and so all of a sudden we got to say no to people for the first time. And I'm like, whoa, wait, we got to say no? We've never had to say no. Everyone who's come through the door asking for money, we've been able to help. And it wasn't that the foundation was raising any more money. It was that the popularity of the foundation was growing, but the fundraising wasn't growing with it. So there was this gap. So these new applicants, they couldn't be helped. So we had to say no. And that just didn't sit right with me. So, I've got this thing in the back of my head going like, how do we fix this? How do we fix this? And no one had any solutions, but that was it. So I come home from this trip, and this is early 2017, and I come home and there's a tub of collagen on the countertop, collagen protein on the countertop of the house, on my kitchen table. And my wife had said, hey, I want you to take this. And I kind of looked at her and I'm like, what the hell is this? And she's like, look, it's really popular with a lot of the health bloggers and nutritionists, and it's going to be really good for your joints. Now, at this point, I'm 45 years old. I've been snowboarding, surfing, lifting weights, running, doing a lot of stuff. I don't like to sit still, but I have definitely slowed down in terms of recovery. I'm achy. I'm just not bouncing back like I did even 4 or 5 years earlier. So I'm willing to try anything. And I'm a guy who's tried, whey proteins and BCAAs and glucosamine, you name it. I've given it a sample, and I've never really noticed that anything's done anything substantial. So I'm willing to try it. My wife tells me to do it. Of course, I'm a dutiful husband. I obey. And
smart.
I take it. It says, heat tolerant protein. I'm like, what? There's no such thing, right? Whey protein is whey protein. Like, it's dairy and it's going to break down in hot liquids or in hot environments. Well, I look at this and it says bovine hide. So I'm like, all right, I got to get on the internet and figure this stuff out. It turns out what collagen is an incomplete protein. Okay, so it doesn't have the tryptophan amino acid in it, which is like what is in whey protein to give it the muscle build side to it. But what it does excel in is in the amino acid profile that helps with all of your connective tissue. And that's what's written on the side of the jar of this brand. It says hair, skin, and nails. I'm like, well, those are all your connective tissue. Joint health, intestinal health, gut health, and more. All connective tissues. Oh, and muscle recovery. So it's not saying muscle growth, but the recovery was interesting to me. So what's the recommendation? 1 to 2 scoops a day, 2 scoops a day. I start onboarding it, taking it, putting it in my coffee because I can. About 3 weeks into it, my nails are growing like I'm frickin' Wolverine. Like, it's wild. And I'm like, where are the nail clippers? Like, I used to cut my nails every couple weeks, and now I'm like, every 5 days I got to trim these beasts back. And I'm like, holy shit, something's happening here. Couple weeks later, I need a haircut. We're going to a wedding, and I just gotten a haircut like a month earlier. And, I don't have quite as full a head of hair as I used to.
Or as me.
Well, that is true. And we're going to talk about how collagen cannot help you there.
I've been trying really hard.
I'm sorry, man. You can rub it on the scalp. I don't know.
I'm rubbing it on, too. I'm like, stuff better work.
So, I'm a month into it, and I'm like, wow. So it's helping with my hair. It's helping with my nails. And we're talking like these are real data points where I'm like, I'm kind of curious. Well, 2 months into it, my knees stopped hurting. And that was it. Like, daily use, 2 months. And I knew it was going to take time because I'd read online about how long it takes for the effects to happen. It's not overnight. But I was committed just because of what my wife had said. So I bought a second tub, or she bought it for me. And I get into the second tub, and that moment my knees stopped hurting was super memorable. I'd just gotten done with a long run, and I had a long flight. And I remember, like, getting off an airplane, and I was like, my knees are going to hurt so freaking bad. And they didn't. Like, not at all. And that was it. It was a total game changer. And I became this like collagen evangelist where I'm like, this is the best stuff ever. Like, this stuff worked so freaking good. And I was like, I'm going to take collagen the rest of my life. That's it. Like, I am totally down. The way I would take a multivitamin, this is going to be in my life. My runs, my lifts, like everything has come around so much since then. And I feel like I got 10, 15 years back on my knees. And that's my anecdotal observation. But the fact is that the amino acid profile in it produces synovial fluids, greases up the joints, helps lubricate them, and it works.
Yep.
So I'm into it. And then my buddy TJ comes over, and TJ Ferrara, I had put him through his Kokoro. He actually used to work in action sports. He was a shop kid back in Michigan. And we'd reconnected over the last year or so, and we would work out a bunch together. He had a great backyard rig. He had this full row set up in his backyard. It was pretty kick-ass. Mm-hmm. And he lived like a mile from me, so I could like run to his house, bang out a workout, run home. And so he comes over. We're grabbing some coffee, and he sees the tub of collagen. And just like I just told you, I rave about how great it is. And he just looks at me and he goes, well, we should start a business. And I'm like, yeah, right. Sure. Well, just for the sake of napkin mathing this thing out while we're sipping coffee, what does it look like? And he says, well, listen, collagen is a rapid growing industry. It's trending really well on Amazon. I happen to track this product. And TJ is the former owner of Wad Snob. So he had a lot of direct-to-consumer experience, and a lot of wholesale experience through the Wad Snob business. I mean, he built this thing from zero to a couple $1 million in his garage because he has a great background in e-commerce. So he said it, and I'm like, okay, well, you would know this because you're a tech nerd, and I'm not. I'm just an old nerd. So what does it look like? That's the big question. And we both look at each other, and the first things we say, and this was the glue right there. We both looked at each other and said, well, we got to do something cool for charity. And that was it. I looked at him and I said, well, shit, I know the charity. We got to do something for Glenn's charity. And Glenn's call sign was Bub, so we got to name the company Bubs Naturals. Done. And Naturals was natural because collagen was this natural product. It's literally ground up powdered cowhide. Like, it's about as natural as it gets. And we're like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, Bubs, here we are. What does it look like? And this is all in like a 15-minute conversation. And so we set out to figure out, yeah, that's how it starts, man. And we said, well, what do the best companies do for charity? Tom's Shoes, Patagonia, like these really well-known brands that are known for caring for the world that we all live in. And they settled out at about 1% to 3% of net profits, which is considered very respectable. And I certainly respect that. And we said, well, let's blow that model out of the water. Let's fuck that whole scene up. Let's go for 10%, boom, right out of the gate. And we're like, whoa, can we even do that? And the answer was we had no idea. But we didn't stop there. We said, now let's go 10% of top line revenue. Let's take it right off the top. Like, forget net profits. Let's go like the biggest possible chunk and set the business up. And we ran the numbers, and it took a couple months to figure out the industry and, all that side to it. And the answer is you can kind of barely do it. But what was important to us was having an absolute top shelf product and a top shelf experience, because if we weren't going to invest in marketing because we were going to give those dollars to charity, which is what the 10% rule effectively comes down to, right, we wanted to make sure that we were going to blow doors on quality. And next thing you know, I'm attending trade shows. We're walking around meeting with different vendors. We're buying every collagen brand under the sun off the store shelves. We're doing blind taste tests, and we're digging into the world of collagen. And the reason we launched a little over a year ago was because we found the absolute best in quality collagen from a solubility and flavor standpoint. From a performance standpoint, the top of that pyramid is very similar. It really comes down to usability. And I wanted one that was going to really seamlessly integrate into someone's lifestyle. Like, I wanted this just to slide right into your coffee. You don't even know it's there. Or your smoothie, or you can cook with it, or whatever you want to do. I didn't want the collagen to get in the way. I wanted it to complement people's lives. And once we figured that out, we were like, all right, well, we both got our day jobs, but let's buy like the smallest amount we can. We'll throw it up on Amazon, and we'll throw some in Danny Miller's CrossFit gym, and we'll start a website. And here we go.
And that's how it went. Wow. So for those listening here, again, I want to point something out. What you said about the 10% piece and how it's top line revenue and not profit. People may think like, oh, 10%, what's 10%? 10% is massive when you're talking for, let alone profit, but top line revenue. That means the entire dollar amount that was received in exchange for the product, you're taking 10% of that. And when you're looking at how a company, whether you're talking about the product fulfillment, the staff, running the website and like shipping the stuff out and any marketing costs and all that, it leaves very little wiggle room. And that is a huge deal. That is literally the biggest one that I have ever heard of in any industry. So I want to commend you on that, because that's a huge feat. And the fact that you guys figured that out and still went to market with, I mean, in essence, all the profit per se that one would really get from this is just going directly into the foundation. And frankly, I mean, you have an incredible story and all that, but that was the main thing I really wanted to share with our audience here, is that there is, what you guys are doing here is really, really powerful. And you've really kind of broken ground, I think, in new territory around this giving model and creating a business literally to serve a purpose for a cause, rather than just like, sure, we're going to use this whole give a shoe, buy a shoe, we give a shoe thing, which shoes cost us 40 cents. So there you go.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's not as big of a deal as the consumer may seem for it to be, but to take a huge chunk of top line revenue and just directly hand that over to a foundation is pretty badass. So I just want to commend you on that. Now, that said, how are your margins then for gyms that sell your product, right? Because you guys this is something, because it comes from our community. Glenn has a hero wad named after him. It's for like maintaining tissue health and joint health and all that. I mean, it's a direct application to people who do what we do, especially for those of us older dogs who've been training for a long time, and our training age is getting to the older side of things, where I want to maintain, I want to be able to keep training and not run myself into the floor. What do the margins look like for gym owners who then want to resell this stuff?
Yeah. So, and I mean, I learned this from being on the gym owner side. We dug into it and we're like, all right, so it looks like gyms make like 25%, maybe 30% margins when they resell some of the supplements. And I'm like, wait a second, like that sucks. Like no one makes any money. Like why would you be incentivized to carry that? And then I looked at the grocery store model, and traditional, like go to Whole Foods, and those stores make like 40 points. And I'm like, well, all right. So we kind of started at 35, but then when we talked about it, we're like, you know what? Let's go to 40. Like, let's give everyone a fair chance at this. Now, and keep in mind that 10% does not affect our pricing. That's our commitment to charity. So we take that out of the money that we collect. That's not on the gyms or the stores or the customer. So our pricing is right in line with all the top producers that are there in the collagen space. We weren't going to make anyone else pay for our commitment to charity. But the margins to the gym were super important because, man, you're there to train people, right? You're there to get people in better health. And this is a nice complement to the core competency of most gyms, which is invest in those humans, for the hour that you get them each day. Well, if you can influence their diet and influence that portion of their life for those 23 hours that they're not in the gym each day, that's really where the combination of gains is going to start happening.
Right.
And, what do they say? Like abs are made in the kitchen. 70% of your overall wellness is going to be determined by what kind of gas you're putting in the tank. And that's happening outside of the gym. But if you're a conduit to help feed that, where you can take a little piece of that gym home and incorporate that in for a healthier lifestyle overall, well, that's the win-win, because you're going to get that customer back because they're committed overall to their fitness and their wellness. So we settled on 40% on the margins, and we said that's worth getting out of bed for.
100%.
Gyms don't make a ton of money. The most successful ones do. But when you're on the smaller side, if you're going to give up a square foot or some of your time and energy to an extra product or service, it just has to make sense both for the client and for the gym owner. So 40 points, I figured if it's good enough for the grocery stores, it should be good enough for the gym owners. So we adopted that, and we've obviously we have these free shipping triggers. We want to make it as easy as possible for a gym to onboard, because that's the culture that we came from. Mm-hmm. So we have like these little free point of sale shelf talkers that talk about the benefits of collagen, and we throw all that in whenever we open a gym up. It's like, hey, here's a kit. Oh, and if you're having an event, we'll try and get you some sample packets, like ways to, I think we talked about that on Instagram, like how do you sample products and get this in front of your audience to educate them and your coaching staff to be able to say, oh, hey, like you should consider this. And collagen isn't specific to, weightlifters or endurance runners. It's specific to humans. It's for everyone, man. Like after you turn 25, you stop producing collagen. Like your body just slows down. So by the time you're 35, 36, 40, 50, you're on this like downward spiral, downward trend of collagen production. And that's where the aches and pains come in. On the vanity side, that's where the wrinkles and, softer nails and all that stuff comes in. So you're basically helping your recovery. You're helping your joint health. You're helping your gut health. Because your body's just going in the opposite direction. So you're just trying to bring it back up.
Right.
And that's, that's the whole alignment of going back to Glenn and Bub, self-improvement. This product is about self-improvement. And if you're a gym owner and, you're saying, hey, I've got a certain amount of space in my retail, well, you're only going to put a product that's going to stand for self-improvement because that's why they're in your gym in the first place.
Right.
And if it happens to have that extra tick where you're going to help someone else transition out of the military at the same time, that's not a bad extra to have on top of that. That's what we're hoping,
Yep. Yeah. So a couple of things. Number one, anyone I've done many shows on retail, and it's actually a module in our foundation's coaching program where we work with gym owners on dialing their whole sales and marketing engine in. One of the components is retail. And one of the rules I put in place is that you don't take anything that's got anything lower than 35% margin because it's just not worth it. You're tying up cash in inventory. And you've got to take the time and the energy to order, to market, to deal with the individual transactions and all of that. And if you're not making at least a 35% split, it becomes pretty difficult to justify. Unfortunately, a lot of the ones that have the higher margins are lower quality, right? So the higher quality stuff has the slimmer margin. So now you get into this internal dilemma of, well, I know I should be providing something to my members so they don't go to GNC and buy total crap.
Yeah.
But I also need to justify, this pillar of business with the margin and all that. So which one do I go with? And when, the fact that you guys do 40% and you guys have this thing that is really applies to anyone, right? It's whether you're a younger athlete or you're a more mature athlete, but specifically to those, and still have a good margin on it is also, again, pretty remarkable. And also one thing I want to say too about the whole concept of longevity and training for longevity. I think that most of us and the CrossFit scene as a whole, I think is now matured to a point to where we're not all just trying to kill ourselves for the PR anymore. And it's kind of come back to the roots of CrossFit, the training methodology, and functional fitness as a whole, and training for life. And I want to be able to continue training for the rest of my life and still be able to make progress and not fall apart because I killed myself for 10 years straight.
Yeah, absolutely.
And especially if you're dealing with a more masters audience, more mature audiences, it's kind of a slam dunk. So anyway, and like I said, no bullshit. I get sent a lot of product, and you're my friend, and you were like, try this, do it with a hot beverage. It actually sat on my counter for several days. My wife is the first one who actually did like this matcha latte thing, and she's like, dude, try this. And I honestly didn't even taste the difference. It did not affect the flavor at all. And normally, the things that are really good for me tend to taste disgusting. And I'm like,
cod oil.
Right. And so, I'm no smoke here at all. Like I legitimately use this every single day at this point. And I also am overcoming older injuries and all that. I'm approaching my 2-month mark. And overall, I legitimately I'm starting to feel better. Like a lot of the aches I used to have in my lower back are starting to dissipate. And it's pretty interesting. And I can't point my finger to anything other than that. That's the only thing that I really actually changed. I don't know if you can tell my hairline too. It's really filling in these days.
Yeah. I was going to say that must be the number 3 trimmer instead of the number 2.
This is a grown out 000 actually. This is the other side effect of having kids. You don't get your hair cut as often as you're supposed to.
No, you do not. You're hanging on for dear life.
No.
But yeah, I look forward to hearing back from you in another 2 months. Because if 2 months was great for me as a transformative time after taking it, 4 months I just felt great. And now a year and a half later, I couldn't imagine going through my daily routine without it, and just how I bounce up and feel great, and that's it. Yeah, I just want to feel great, and that's not too much to ask. And if you're gonna train the way we want to train for life, that's why I got into CrossFit in the first place. I got into it because I still wanted to snowboard at a high level, I wanted to surf as best I could. I wanted to mountain bike and do all the activities I love, but I didn't always have the time to do that. But boy, I would have the time to get into the gym, so make the most of it. And I've loved the training. And yeah, we all go for the PR stuff. And then you kind of realize, like, yeah, I'm in this for the long game.
Right.
This is the game of life. And diet-wise, I've always had a fair diet. But to find a supplement that is so natural and so clean that does so much for you, that became the litmus test. And that, again, it all goes back to Glenn and the BUB kind of mantra of self-improvement. And that's why, like, every product that we roll out, it has to have that lens on it. So we actually came out with a second product, an MCT oil powder. So the keto diet is obviously going crazy, and coconut oil, MCT is right in the middle of that. And so we found a fantastic MCT oil powder, and I'm like, great, this is now my ultimate coffee companion. I've got collagen, got a good protein source, and I've got this brain food over here. It's like my solution to the, to a bulletproof is my BUBS brew. And
I gotta
we
try
started
that.
joking, calling it, you're getting some. It's a game changer. So, and it's a powder. So like the messiness of oil doesn't jack up your coffee.
Right.
And again, this is coffee, tea, smoothies. And we test piloted it with, I don't know if you know Zia down at CrossFit Counterculture.
Of course.
So her gym is like a mile from my house, and I train in there when I can, and I'll poke my head in. Zia's awesome, and she is that ultimate nutrition person. Like, she talks to her clients about what they should be putting in their body, takes it very, very seriously. And I sent her some of the MCT, and I'm like, just try this out, see how it works for you. And yeah, it passed with flying colors. And now, every time I see her, she's like, hey, we're going to need some more of that in here.
100%.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a quick question from one of our viewers here. Rachel is asking, so for clients looking for muscle growth, do you recommend BUBS in conjunction with a whey casein option?
Yeah, 100%. So I will never recommend BUBS for the gains. BUBS is for your overall body, but you're not going to see muscle growth from that. It lacks that essential amino acid tryptophan. And quite frankly, I wasn't looking for something bulking.
Right, that was the point.
But it goes hand in hand with a proper whey protein or a casein or, wherever you're getting your protein source from. They complement each other like peas and carrots.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the way I've been using it is I use it, it's actually what I do in my morning tea. I mix it in, so that's where I have my full, I have 2 cups, and I do half and half. And then post-training, I actually take an SFH with the BCAA within 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And so that combo's worked great for me. And I mean, I assumed that was what I was supposed to be doing with it because of how collagen works and how it's not designed for that. So I just assumed. So I'm glad I didn't screw that up.
No, you did not. You're right on the money. It's our number one asked question. Is how it complements against a traditional whey protein. And I'm like, just side by side. Think of this like a daily vitamin, right? It's
Exactly.
not training specific. You don't need to take collagen right when you train. If you really are concerned about the recovery elements, you would actually take it about an hour prior to workout. But by and large, I just tell people, and I've vetted this out with some MDs, just take it first thing in the morning because it's in your body every day. It's not an activity-specific protein. It's you just put this in and go.
Yeah.
So that's really what it's designed for.
Awesome. All right. I want to pivot a little bit here on how gym owners can run a proper tasting and introduce product like this to their community and really create a bunch of awareness and even pre-orders through this. So I want to walk you through the model that we teach. And as I know you're aware of it, but we have a contest running at the moment for anyone in the network here. So any of you at this point, like almost 1,700 gym owners, take advantage of this opportunity because Sean has been kind enough to put together an entire tasting kit, table and sample products and mixers and the POP displays, like the little talkers and the whole deal. It's a really powerful, it's like pro setup. You would normally have to buy all this shit. And you're actually providing it to any gym who, or the winner is going to take this thing home and get to try it out. So let's talk about how to do that. So
yeah,
When we talk about supplement sales, typically I approach this from two standpoints. Number one, we need to seed product with brand new members and making sure that they are receiving the product with context right in the beginning of their journey when they're all eyes, all ears open, and they're really looking for guidance around how am I going to get the most out of this program? How do I make sure I'm losing weight? I don't hurt myself, yada, yada. So I would typically build a talking point and sampling into your onboarding or your initial integration strategy. So somewhere within those first few sessions, even if possible, where you're giving a nutrition talk. So you're giving context around all this stuff, talking a little bit about recovery, and then you can offer the samples. So now we're exposing it to our new people. That's step one. The second piece, and the more challenging one, is how do we maintain visibility with our existing client base? Because you can have it on a shelf, maybe it sells for a minute and then it starts to fizzle. So what we recommend doing is every 6 months or so doing a tasting and pre-order. And this is where you bring the product in, you set up a table, and you basically for a whole day or two have someone staffing that table. Start each class off with an initial introduction saying, hey guys, before we get started, make sure you go see Coach Sean over there at the BUBS table. As you guys know, we're doing a tasting here to check out the product. I've tried a lot of things on the market. This is better for reasons. And be sure to check it out. See Sean after class. Free samples. It's on the house. And make sure if you guys like it too, you get it on that pre-order because you're going to get 10% off. We're going to be placing a big bulk order if you guys like it. This is your opportunity to get it at a discount. Check it out. So now you have this table, you're handing out samples. And with BUBS in particular, I think what would be really cool is because it is so unique to be able to do it in a hot beverage, I would actually consider like mixing that there and like pouring samples for your product so people can experience the different way to consume it maybe from how they're used to doing it. But then we set up our table, and then after each class, we're having people go over, we're placing pre-orders, and then you have a cutoff date, let's say later on that week. So if Monday and Tuesday, which is typically your highest attending days in most gyms, I would put a cutoff date that Friday so that you can keep promoting it all week long and get people to get in on that pre-order. And now you can place a larger order for the gym where you can actually buy some inventory using the profit from the people who made that initial pre-sale purchase. So you're able to leverage that input of cash and not have to come up with quite as much, if any, to do your initial round of stock. And if you take even just that bare bones approach in advance, you're going to be able to you can make some good money because now you're going to have this product stocked and you can continue to start to ramp up awareness throughout the period between that and your next tasting. So that's the system. What do you have to add to that?
Well, I mean, you just nailed it. So from our standpoint on the brand side, like it's kind of like with you, right? You've now had a couple of months experience with BUBS.
Yep.
So when you and I first kind of reconnected, I said, hey, I want to send you this stuff. And there's no agenda. There's no, hey, I want to do anything other than I know you're in this business and I know that you would benefit from it. But I need you to experience that yourself. Me telling you that your joints are going to feel better is me selling to you. You experiencing it and becoming, having that personal experience, that's where rubber meets road.
No
so
doubt.
from a brand standpoint, we opened a couple of gyms this way, specifically one called CrossFit The Point. It's out in Utah. And I met the owner via email, and I just said, give me your address. And I just sent out a tub. Now, we don't do this for every gym, to be clear, but I wanted a case study of getting the product in someone's hands, having them use it, and I just waited. I waited for him to come back around. Quite frankly, I didn't want to talk to him about it until he could come back and say, man, this is awesome. And he did. It took about 6 weeks, and he came back around, and he's like, I want to buy. How do we do this? I'm like, okay, here we go. This is how we're going to help you out. We're going to send you, get over the $500 mark for your first buy. That triggers free shipping. I'm going to throw in some sample packets so you can onboard those new members. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to throw in a bunch of 5x7 cards that have some information on the brand so that your coaches see that very visibly, top 5 talking points, and some stickers, just some fun brand stuff that can get in circulation so it has visibility inside your community. And I already had the coach, right? I had this absolute leader of influence inside this community, and he had already had this positive experience. So then when he brought it into the community, he's not saying, hey, this stuff does A, B, C, D. He's saying, I've felt this. I have this experience. And in a lot of gyms, when they do that, whether they do it as coaches or they do a trial run with their members, that becomes the evangelist inside of the gym. That becomes that user base that will influence the other members. And we all have those alpha members in the gym that, what they do makes a difference. And it all stems from the top, and the top is the coach. So we try and, get everyone set up with a starter kit, a shelf talker, 5x7s, some extra stick packets, and just make sure that, the coaches understand what it is. And then we can establish a better relationship. So it's 40% margin. And we'll always throw in some extra sample packets just to make sure that they have a little currency to onboard people. Like the CrossFit The Point example was definitely an exception. But I wanted to just make sure that he had a very friendly onboard with it. But yeah, everything you said is perfect. A brand has to support the gym. Otherwise, it's never going to last. Like if I wasn't there to do an in-store demo, at some of these spots, it wouldn't translate. And if I can't be there, I have to be able to help the gym in whatever way I can with the extra collateral to help them make a difference. Everything you said.
Well, then we have it. There we have it. Well, I think there's a lot to be said about the fact that you guys are really actually providing the tools for them to be successful. Where I have found personally, having sold or tried to sell a variety of different products over the years through my gym and through other companies, where it really feels very transactional. It's, hey, you need to buy this, you get your product. Maybe they threw a couple stickers in, but they're not really necessarily trying to give you the tools specific to my application to help me sell more. And the fact is that that's the whole reason I'm doing this, is so that I can provide a good product to my members and help contribute more income to the business, so I can pay my coaches better, I can make a better living, we can buy more equipment. That's what happens with the profitability of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's really important when you find partners who actually support that and give you these tools and help work with you creatively to help try to make the most of this channel for you in your business. It goes a really long way.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you've owned a gym, you know how tight everything is and how important it is, and the bandwidth, is only so much. So
Sure.
If you're going to onboard a new brand, you want to make sure it's one that is the best quality, that's going to deliver the best value, and that, quite frankly, that they're easy to work with. So if I'm a dick, but hey, I've got the Glenn Hero Wad and we're tied to CrossFit, but I'm not easy to work with, what's the point? And if you can't have a good experience with the product, what's the point? So to that level, one other thing I meant to mention earlier, like we went out and got our NSF for Sport certification. And I did that because I wanted to have that value stamp, that quality stamp on the product, so that when a gym owner looks at it and says, well, why do I want this? And I can say, well, we're NSF for Sport certified. And he's going to go, okay, no one in college except for one company is NSF for Sport certified. So that's a great mark. Okay, these guys mean business. Mm-hmm. They're not just here to, make some money and bolt. They're in it to win it, as the expression goes. And that's what we want to, that's why we're here. I'm here to see how much money can I raise for this charity. Well, how far can we take this thing? And I'm only going to be able to take it as far as we can help these gyms get off the ground, and we can help them have a good experience with us, and help those members, because a healthier member is a longer lasting member. If they don't have joint issues, they're not going to quit. If they're having good, intestinal, and they're having good results based on their activity and nutrition, they're not going to quit. That gym member's they're locking down. And that's what we all want to see, is we want to see people that come back for more. You don't want a member who quits after 3 months. You want a member who's there for 3 years.
Right.
So it's one part of the equation.
No doubt. Well, Sean, I want to thank you very much for being on the show today. One question I always like to ask every one of our guests is, in one sentence, if you could give one piece of advice to a gym owner, what would it be?
Ooh.
Don't screw this up.
Ooh, God, the pressure here. Take the time with those early clients, and remember, not everyone knows as much as you. CrossFit is incredibly intimidating. And when you're new and you have the potential of onboarding one of these new members, take the time with them. Help them recognize that this is very, very attainable. I love that HQ is doing that right now. That's not one sentence. That's like 8 sentences, and I'm sorry for that. But take the time with those new members. Onboard them properly, because if you do, they'll be gold for you.
Relationships for life. That's the business we're in. You're not selling gym memberships.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love it, man. Well, where can people find more about you and about BUBS?
Yeah, so I mean, from a gym owner standpoint, hell, email me, Sean, SEAN, at bubsnaturals.com. We're also, we're a direct-to-consumer brand primarily, so we're on Amazon. We're actually Amazon's Choice and Amazon Prime. We have a great relationship with them. And then our website, bubsnaturals.com. And from BUBS, in there you can read about the backstory, the commitment to charity, the benefits of collagen and MCT, and kind of arm yourself with why you would choose to integrate this into your life and into your gym's life.
Awesome, man. Well, again, Sean, thank you so much for taking the time today. You have a remarkable product. You have an incredible story with this. And this is a little bit out of the norm for us to do a show like this. But I really felt it was important to share, just because how unique the business model is and what you guys are doing. And it's actually a good product that I actually personally use. So I felt it was a natural fit. Thank you for being on the show. Greatly appreciated. And I want to thank all of you motivated gym owners out there as well for joining us today. Again, if you're listening to this via podcast, be sure to check out the video version of this interview along with the extensive show notes at gymwright.com. And if you're enjoying the show, please leave us a 5-star written review. Your support means the world to us. So also, if you like watching the show live, you can join the conversation every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time in the network. Thanks again for your support. Now get out there and build something that matters. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.